Welcome to UL and Friends, a podcast brought to you by Unfocused Love. This week we're talking to Jemma Freeman about all things, including re-emerging from lockdowns to live music, the origins of Jeff, and the new Cosmic Something album. So, hope you enjoy it.
UL and Friends. Wow. Hi. Welcome back to UL and Friends. Episode, I think this will be number 3. And we're joined today with Ant. How you doing, mate?
Hey man, all right. I'm not too bad. I'm dying in the heat, but like a dog in the back car, just roll down the window and I'm all good.
Smooth, yeah. Fair enough. And how would you describe the guest we've got today?
Yeah, sure. As always, I've got something written down here, so I'll get my radio voice on. Our guest today is a true stalwart in the South London scene and is as ubiquitous as grumpy sound engineers and sticky beer floors. After learning guitar as a combination, After learning guitar using a combination of a toy flamenco guitar and violin, our guests made their way through the classic route of school bands before taking a break until their uni days, where they plucked up the courage to put their all into the band, The Fucks. Here they released tracks on the new cross label Angular Records alongside the Long Blondes, and they made closer connections with the scene, sharing a rehearsal space with Klaxons. After a tricky time getting their LP out due to a dodgy producer, our guests featured in the improv dub chamber group Solus 3, where they supported the legendary Can frontman Damo Suzuki at the Royal Festival Hall. Our guest has toured Europe and the US, writing and playing with Bella Union band Landshapes before taking the plunge into their own solo project, Jemma Freeman and the Cosmic Something, just 4 years ago. Their first LP, Oh Really, What's That Then?, saw our guests delve into shimmering glam rock, garage rock and psychedelia backed with a beefy band of power and finesse. Their second LP will be dropping soon, so keep an eye on that. Our guest has also recorded with Heavenly's Fran Lobo, Wendy Ray Fowler, and recently Your Heterosexual Violence, showing the sheer breadth of their talents. They have a gig coming up in just a few days, although when you probably hear this it will have long gone, but we'll big it up anyway, at the Windmill, the legendary Windmill in Brixton, alongside Familiar Action and a collection of other bands. And it's my absolute pleasure to welcome to UL and Friends the South London superstar phenomenon that is Jemma Freeman.
Hello.
Yay.
Hello.
Yeah.
Feel a bit
How are you,
nervous
Jemmy?
now.
All right?
I'm okay. How are you doing?
Yeah, not bad. Surviving, and that's all we can be thankful for at the moment.
This is true.
Yeah. How have you been, and what have you been up to?
I've been
recently?
all right. I feel a bit more normal now. I've been able to get back into the rehearsal studio and play a little bit. So I kind of went through a period of hibernation, I think, at the beginning. There was like a bit of grief at the beginning. The last gig we did actually was in the Windmill in February, and then it was like 3 weeks later everything stopped. So luckily it was a good one, otherwise I would have been just sitting feeling quite bad about that, I think, for months and months. So I don't know, beginning of the year I was sort of wondering whether I was still able to play. My biggest anxiety really when I think about it was whether I'd be able to still play standing up, which sounds kind of silly, but I spend so much time like sitting down playing guitar and singing sitting down. But I have disproved my theory, and we played at Amp Studios. We did one like a few weeks ago, and I kind of all just came back. It was fine. I didn't really rehearse any movements, but it seems that those are kind of just built in. I don't actually seem to have any control over those.
Yeah.
Those just happen by themselves, apparently. If you put me in front of an audience, it's just like sort of winding up one of those toys. It's just off it goes. So that was actually just fine. So been mostly, as Ant mentioned, been recording second album. So we wanted to kind of go in with a bang and kind of do it all really, really quickly, but life got in the way of that. So we've just kind of sort of been going back to it and finishing it off now. Been recording some bits at home, so I'm quite proud that my recording techniques have finally developed to the stage where some things are usable in a studio context. You'll be pleased to know as I'm recording this for you now. So rest assured, this is a professional setup we've got here.
It's going to be the best sounding episode.
Yeah, this is my CV. I'm just
look.
just going to send this round. So yeah, just been like sort of getting those last bits and pieces down on those recordings. I've sort of put off for ages the singing for some reason. I sort of kind of convinced myself that perhaps I've forgotten not only how to stand up but also how to sing. But I think it turns out that I probably will be all right. I'm just kind of very, very anxious about it at the minute. But that's mostly what I've been doing. moved out of Catford because it was getting a bit intense, and I've moved like. I've moved from South London. I mean, I am still in South London. I'm in South West London though, so I'm not sure if I'm allowed.
Oh,
You might want to get rid of me.
You've
It might be
converted now.
end of the
Can fix that
the
in
interview.
post.
But yeah, no, my partner lives here, so it kind of made more sense to kind of come this part of the river, and it's kind of it's been really good actually. It's kind of been quite helpful, I think, for my mental health and being able to walk around and stuff, because there was like a limited number of parks and trees and things where I was in Catford, and it was getting a bit exhausting, I think, by the end. So I don't know how so that's kind of it. Yes, that was a very long answer to a very short question.
That's all right.
No, that's what we like. That's what we're all about.
Yeah. No, it's
I have a similar thing. Like, go ahead, Alex, man. You go ahead.
No, it's probably going to be along the same lines. I imagine.
Yeah. I was just saying, like, when I have a similar thing. I'm like trying to record some vocals at the moment, and I always, for me, it is like the dread moment. Like, I'll set get all my stuff. I'll get my duvet and put it over and get it all ready, get it all dead sounding and all this, and then it will just be like 60 takes of me going no. So I completely understand you on that one. Drive me up the wall. I've for like the past couple of weeks, I've just been trying to record. Like the fight, like just a normal vocal line, and I've just got the bridge and the last chorus to do, and I've kind of just taken a week off. I'm like, I'll do it when I next have a day off. We'll do that, and I kind of just look at it, I'm like, oh god. But I completely understand what you mean. But we'll fight. I'm sure you'll be fine. I'm coming down to the gig myself, so it should be great.
Oh, that's good. That's cool. I think it's a relatively early start on Sunday. I think it starts at 6.
Yeah, I think it's 6 or something.
I don't know why. But I think that's. Oh, I think there's a different thing in licensing now or something because germs don't come out after 10 o'clock or something, isn't it? Like,
this has been the thing.
It's something like that. That happened at AMP as well. I can't remember why. It was literally something as silly as that. But that's
How
cool.
was your
I will look forward to
first gig
seeing it.
back?
What microphone are you using to record? Is that a Spirit?
I'm using an SE 2300.
Ah, nice.
It's quite a good. It was quite a good deal I got on it, to be fair. I was trying to when I moved, I funnily enough moved out as well, but I was living with my parents and moved to Camberwell, so similar enough, it was getting that space for myself. But I said to myself, right, let's invest in something. So I bought bits like a Pro MPA2 preamp and Rode NT5s and stuff like that, little bits and pieces, but it's definitely rounded out things. And like listening back to some of the recordings I've been doing, I'm like, okay, we're on the right path here. But yeah, that's pretty much what's been going on there.
That's cool.
Alex, now you can speak.
So how was your first gig back after all of that time?
It was really lovely. It was I was really nervous. And I definitely went too wild on the first song. I like nearly kind of crippled myself for the entire gig by just like, as I said, my kind of body decided to spring into all kinds of weird action. Like, but no, it was great. It was with this band called The Oozes, and they have got like loads of really sweet, lovely young sort of teenage fans. There were some people with their parents that brought them along. It was just really lovely because it was all like, they were all kind of quite a lot of trans and non-binary kids. And they were just so sweet and so nice afterwards. I think they must have thought I'm some sort of like ancient rock star or something, because they were all coming up and like we got like asked to sign things. It was the sweetest thing ever, and it was just like quite embarrassing because it was just like, honestly, we're just human beings, but that's really, really nice. And the Oozes were really, really great as well. Legend. They sounded really good. They all looked really exciting on stage and stuff. So it was really fun. And it was nice that it was at AMP Studios because it's just like a big, I don't know if you've been, but it's like kind of big railway arch with like a courtyard out the front. So it's quite spaced out. So it's sort of for first time back, it was quite good, and it was kind of still distanced to some extent. I went, that was the first place I went out. Afterwards, I went and watched Simon Yorkshire, who's another Deptford, South London kind of legend, had put on one of his Intox nights there, and so that was the first thing I went and saw, which was a distance show. So I was kind of grateful it was somewhere I knew. It was very echoey, because obviously like railway arches work best when they're kind of rammed to the gills. So it was quite echoey. There was no need for any additional reverb in the situation, but that was cool. Like we just kind of kept it quite. Just got t-shirts across all the drums, taped all the cymbals. Because our drummer was like, "Oh, maybe I'll just hit it a bit more quietly," and we were like, "No." Don't do that. Don't do that. And he was like, "Yeah, no, you're right. What was I thinking?" He's like, "I wouldn't be able to anyway." I was like, "Yeah, exactly." So, so that was good. It was like a relief that it was good, and also just real pleasure to play live and with people, and kind of. It's strange. It's like that thing, like kind of riding a bike sort of thing. That kind of analogy. Kind of, it was exactly like that, but so much more. Kind of precious and important. Bizarre. Have you guys played, or have you been to see anything recently?
I played. I did an ambient gig the other night as part of like Leeds Poetry Festival, just sort of back in some poets, and that was quite fun. That was my first sort of outing in an ambient sense, so it was quite an experience.
The most punk ambient set I've ever heard.
Yeah. Basically because I almost blew the speakers because my mixer was a bit dodgy. And then I had to do like this ridiculous lunge because my loop pedal basically got all of the stuff erased off of it because it was like basically I had something leaning on it that just deleted everything. And then I had to do this crazy lunge across my pedal board to use the hold function on my delay pedal, whilst also leaning and turning some synths on the other side of my pedal wheel, basically. So it was, I was just absolutely sweating buckets as well because it was like 28 degrees or something. So
I love the idea of playing like this ambient, relaxing sounds, and it's like the most stressful thing ever. Like there's just machines going off everywhere that you can't quite kind of get a hold on.
I was getting told off multiple times for almost blowing the speakers, and then I was just dripping sweat off my nose, and I was literally just doing ambient music, so it was
I had a similar
some industrial.
Yeah, exactly. Well,
I had a similar experience where I was asked to there's like some kind of posh yoga thing that someone asked me to go and play like some ambient guitar to, but it was a similarly kind of stressful thing because I was just like, if I accidentally make some really aggressive noise, this is going to be an absolute disaster. It was like the most stressful 40 minutes of my life to try and like keep everything under to a kind of meditative kind of I don't know what. Was it really weird? Yeah, it was weird. It was very stressful for me, but I think and it was like one of those weird things where everyone was like, "Oh, it's so relaxing," and you could see you were so in the energy. I'm like, you have no idea what I just went through. It was like hell.
Yeah, exactly.
More stressful than playing really, really fast, noisy stuff like this. No, not for me. Yeah.
It's like at least you've got some control over like just generally being quite noisy and like abrasive, but I feel like you can't control some things where you're supposed to be really soft and you just do the one wrong note, and it's because it's delayed so many times it just adds up and just keeps feedbacking. You're like, oh, I just keep hearing this one note that's completely wrong.
It's the sonic equivalent of like when you've made a mistake during the day and you're laying in bed, you're like, why the fuck did I say that? Why did I do that? It's constantly going, and everybody can hear it. Yeah, it's
and then you just don't sleep that night because it's just there. But that's what happened this week for me, so that's quite interesting. But shall we move on to the next section of the chat where we basically go all the way back to the very beginning.
Okay.
Not that far, but what are your first memories of music?
My first memories of music, I used to think that so my dad's stereo, he had like speakers on the floor on quite low floor stands, and I remember my first thing was I thought that if I sang into the speakers it would be broadcast across the radio. And so I used to dare myself as a very, very tiny child to like sort of talk into the speaker because I thought that it was being broadcast. And I thought, so that's like one kind of memory of it. And then another thing I can remember, like one of my other earliest memories is probably like dancing to David Bowie and Mick Jagger's Dancing in the Street. That was like a song I was quite obsessed with at one point. And then also a Malcolm McLaren song where he did like a kind of... Malcolm McLaren did this sort of classical album. And I used to do like really weird dance routines, do it when I was about 3 or 4. So I can remember that. And I also remember being at school and being really into the percussion box. And like one lesson we managed, I think it was when we were like 5 or 6 or something, we managed to actually get quite a good rhythm going, and the teacher couldn't quite believe it. And she tried to record us, and she ran out of the room. By the time we came back, it had descended into chaos. And she brought like another teacher, because she's like, they're doing a thing. And then we'd sort of obviously stopped, and it had gone wrong. And then tried to make us do it again, and we couldn't do it. So I can remember doing that. And then the other thing, more unpleasant memory, is that we used to have to share recorders, like treble recorders, desk cam recorders.
No. Yeah.
And they used to put them in this
Classic.
like massive bucket of like Dettol or something. And so I just remember the smell of it, and like it sort of tasted funny. And we had to play them, and then when you got them, they were wet, and like it was really grim. It was really gross. And I'm autistic. I didn't realize at the time, but I remember like I just really couldn't follow lessons. I'm very, very bad at following instructions because I just get the wrong end of the stick, and like I couldn't really. I remember like getting told off because I was just really fascinated that if you put your thumb in the back of the recorder, it made like a round hole, and I was just like, wow, like I got like the thing. And I was just like, yeah, I got told off for that. Those are kind of my very earliest memories of music. And then, so that's kind of probably the earliest ones, I think, probably.
Do you remember like any particular... I mean, I know you mentioned artists.
Oh, yeah.
But do you remember any like particular albums that you were like, wow, or like the first album you bought, for example?
First album I bought... I got like a voucher for W.H. Smith or something, and the first one I bought, I wanted to buy something else, but I wasn't allowed to because it had an explicit language or parental advisory sticker. So I ended up having to buy Alanis Morissette. So I didn't really want that. It was one of those things though where, because it was the only sort of CD I had, I just sort of did get into it because it's just all I had at the time. So I just used, I think I had that. And then like one of the first tapes I bought was Shaggy's "Oh Carolina." I had no idea what it was about. I wasn't very good at following lyrics. I'm still not very good at following lyrics. Like my favourite song, or remembering the names and or titles of things, which is why I'm struggling a bit here probably. But I always just kind of listened to the music part of things. Like, and the 90s, I really struggled because a lot of it was quite incomprehensible in terms of like, it was either like really shouty kind of rock, which you couldn't really hear the words, or it was like a lot of hip hop, which again, I just couldn't follow. I was just like, I have no idea what this is about apart from the chorus. And then I'd often get completely the wrong end of stick about what I thought the song was about, because I'd mishear things all the time. So, yeah. I thought that the Alanis Morissette song was about a cross-eyed bear, like, there's a song like, I'm here to remind you, and what she's actually saying is the cross-eyed bear. But I thought it was a song about how how she had a cross-eyed bear from, like, I was like, oh, she's still got this cross-eyed bear, and it's like, you know, like it's from the relationship they had, and she was given a cross-eyed bear. Like, I made up this whole narrative to make this line make sense because it was just like so weird to me. I was like, that must be like her boyfriend gave her a bear, and it was like a bit wonky and like. And even though it was a bit wonky, that was fine, and that's why she liked it, and it wasn't at all. It's like, I completely missed the point of the entire song. Like, actually thinking about it now, I still don't know what the point of the song is, but definitely isn't about, like, having a bear. No.
I don't know, Jay. I have a feeling that Alanis might have missed the trick there, to be fair. Like,
if anything,
I think she might have fucked up on that one.
You've definitely got an idea for like a cover album there, like where you could just make an album of songs that should have been because of misheard lyrics.
I think so. I think that's like that. I think that's why Elizabeth Fraser like just decided to sing Nonsense for the later Cocteau Twins albums because she realised nobody could hear what she was singing. But that's quite an extreme. And then there was that guy in is this that Nana Cherry song? It's not a second, 7 seconds away. The guy that's singing, that goes, he's actually singing nonsense. It's not a language. He's like his most famous song, like that. I'm pretty sure. Like, you might want to check me on this trivia, but I'm fairly sure it's like not any language. It's just some kind of nonsense language that he decided to sing.
That makes me
I
think
always
of.
thought.
It makes me think of this German band called. Well, again, the trivia. I might be wrong about this. This is some like rate your music business, but like a German band called Magma, and kind of like krautrocky stuff, but I think it's called Zwell or something, or Zoil or something. That the genre similar to like a very extravagant, big, operatic. Sounds like a really epic musical, but it's jazzy and proggy. And I believe they're a Belgian band actually, but they're singing in a made-up German language, so it sounds like German.
Amazing.
But the whole album is like made up in this language, and it's really intricate kind of prog stuff. And I'm like, you guys have got. I thought I had a lot of time on my hands, but you know, I think you guys have like taken a biscuit on this one. Like,
I'm frantically trying to find you something because, as I said, I don't remember. Oh yeah, I never remember any kind of words for anything. There's an Italian singer that like just kind of took on all the kind of American tropes and made things sort of sound American. And he had like this massive hit, and it's just him singing nonsense. It's not actually any language. And then he has a whole massive dance troupe of people all dancing and singing along. Like he's got a whole choir of them singing nonsense. He's called Adriano Celentano, and it's all crazy. It's all just completely it's complete nonsense language. And it was a success. It made him a millionaire.
Stuff, yeah,
pretty sure that's him. So yes, my earliest memories of not really just not really understanding songs, but really liking. I'd always like be able to I'd pick out bits of songs. I'd listen to songs in quite a weird way, like because my parents would listen to the radio in the car quite a lot, and I just because they played the same songs over and over again. When they used to come on, I used to sort of pick out sort of individual elements of it. So I'd be like, oh, I'd listen to the bass in this one, or I'd notice sort of like certain things, or I'd listen to just the drums somehow or other. Stuff like that. Yeah.
And that came about before you were a musician?
Yeah. I always kind of I was quite a ridiculous child. Like whenever anyone asked me what I wanted to do, I'd just say I wanted to be famous. But for being a musician, like I would just dance along to like Top of the Pops and stuff like that. So I love music. I loved all, like, it just does something to me, you know, like, and I used to like how you could kind of listen to music and make it sound different if you picked out different bits. It'd be a sort of like game I would play, I suppose, like, it's because you'd end up hearing the same thing so many times over and over again, which was probably quite a useful skill.
Well, yeah, for sure. That's what I was going to ask you. That's why I asked the question, because like sometimes when I talk to some of my friends who aren't musicians, but who love music, and I ask them, how do you like listen to music? How do you imagine it? And they say, oh, they imagine it in a completely different way, and almost they imagine it in a way that I did before I learned instruments.
Okay.
And the way in which you were describing it was the kind of that shift that I had. It was like, once I started learning instruments, I was like, I can pick that out. So it was interesting that you were able to, you almost had that innate ability. Maybe it was your calling, exactly.
It just felt like a game, I think, because otherwise music just kind of is like a big sort of picture to me. It's like, and it's always the same picture. It's kind of weird. It's like, if I listen to the same, not every song makes a picture, but and it's not always to do with, it's not to do with necessarily, it was generally not to do with the words that are in it, because I have no idea what they're saying. So it's usually to do with some kind of mood or feeling or sense that I get from, or impression that's being created. And it's like I visit a place, like it's almost quite a tangible kind of scenery usually, and it's the same place for songs. They don't usually go to a different place, and I'll be kind of like within that kind of scenery, and so it's quite a visual experience, kind of seeing how everything is kind of set out. And it's not like, oh, the bass is trees or something like that. It's more to do with something to do with just a general sense of the environment that kind of a bit of music might create. And then other bits of music also have quite a strange effect on me. Some songs, some notes in songs, like I will just involuntarily cry, and it's not that I'm sad. It's not like it's evoking an emotion. It just like, so there's a particular chord change in Waterloo Sunset. I cannot listen to that song. You could keep playing it to me, and every single time my eyes will water. I'm thinking about it now. I can hear the chords in my head, and it's almost making me cry now. It's really strange. There's a few songs that do that to me. That's like the one with the most obvious. And it doesn't matter how many times I hear it. It does the same thing, and it's quite strange.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
I get similar things sometimes. Like I get sort of like tingles down the back of my neck.
Yeah.
I can't picture the songs now, but like when I'm just listening, it's always only in headphones though. If it's or sometimes like when I've seen bands live and they do the same thing.
Yes. Yep.
And then I know that I've seen something like, wow, that's really good. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. It's hard to explain why, or I don't know. Maybe you don't need to explain why that with that sort of thing.
I had a similar experience not long ago, actually, and I was thinking to myself, would this have happened to me had I not sort of... It sounds almost cliche how this happened, but I have a similar experience, and it really came out to me the other day. I was in work, and I put on some Billy Bragg, and it was the song "There Is Power in a Union," and it gets to like the rising chorus, and my body's just like, and I'm just thinking, is this the music, or is this like the meaning behind it? You know, how these things is causing me to feel this way, and it just made me think, damn, music is. I mean, it's so. There was an interview with like Richard Dawson talking about this. It's so like ethereal as an art form, as opposed to something like visual art. And and the fact that it can hit us in these ways, it's magic, man. Yeah.
I don't know.
So I'm going on a ramble.
Yeah. I studied fine art at university because I can't play piano and they wouldn't let me do the music course at my school. I'm not still bitter about that at all. You can tell by the way I'm totally over it. But no, it was good. I enjoyed doing fine art. But I do find that if there's like it's a very good bit of fine art, it can do a similar thing where it kind of evokes, like a good piece of music. It means different things to different people for some reason. You connect to it because it's kind of, there's some sort of fundamental elements that are the same for everybody, but there's some kind of like niche kind of points at which you kind of connect to something. And I think any kind of form of art, when it's really delivered very well, I think there can be a bit of confusion because, the art world is very much tied up with privilege and, we can't all own a bit of really, really amazing art. You can have a copy or a poster, but it's not the same as having the thing. Music is more universal. We can all have a Spotify account or whatever. But I think if you do have like a really, really good, powerful piece of art, like I think the other mistake is because we go to galleries and we whiz around. And I would suggest this to you, like next time if you ever go to a gallery, just like choose one or two bits, try it out. And literally just stand there for 10 minutes. Just make yourself stand there for like 10 minutes in front of it. Because this thing took somebody hours to make. And actually there's lots of tiny, tiny little decisions. In the same kind of way you might get more instantly in a piece of music for some reason. Because it's audible and it's being sort of fed to you. But I kind of had to do this experiment myself. Because I was starting to get to the point where I was just like, ugh, I can't stand art museums. And there's just too much in them, I think. It's like almost like listening to like in somebody else's entire iPod for like in an hour and a half. And actually, if you just kind of go, right, I've never stood in front of a Van Gogh. I'm going to just do it. I'm just going to stand in front of those. I'm going to stand in front of a Dorothea Tanning for 10 minutes and just see what happens. Like, and maybe nothing will happen because maybe that piece of art doesn't really work for you. But I would recommend trying it because it kind of might help. If you want to do that, of course, you don't have to.
Yeah,
but
I think that's fantastic. It reminds me of like in the Tate, the Rothko room with like the Four Seasons, and I feel as though it was interesting what you say. It's almost like it's an overload of stuff when you go into a gallery, but for some reason, I mean, obviously, like for some reason they have specifically said, okay, now you are going to sit in this dark room and let these huge, ominous, powerful paintings, do their thing. And I wish there would be more of that, because that was the sort of instance where I've received that. But it almost, in that sense, has to be spoon-fed to me. It's like, okay, this is a singular room. It's very dark. There are seats here. Sit down. Go.
Yeah.
But I would like to see more of it.
I think everyone does the same thing. I think the other thing is when they kind of have a huge retrospective of an artist and it's like 5 rooms and it gets really, really packed. And it's almost like we kind of browse it as if we're browsing shoes or something in a sale. And you kind of don't, it's kind of just that groupthink thing. And it's like, you feel like you should keep moving. But it can be just really overwhelming. And yeah, you're right. We sort of have to be forced sometimes to kind of sit and observe things. Whereas I think like music, it kind of, you still have, I guess with your visions taken away from you by something, you have to become very absorbed in it in a way that perhaps in music we can still carry on doing other bits and pieces. Whereas maybe
do you think that takes away from music though? If
say again, sorry?
Do you think that takes away from music though if you're doing other things, like you're not really? Because I sort of try and listen to music and just listen to music sometimes, which I feel like is not really, that doesn't really happen anymore, because there's Spotify, there's things where you can walk, or you can do the washing up, or
you're getting on the
you
bus
can do
or
anything.
something like that, getting on the train. It's so.
Or you're like, I know that sometimes I used to read and listen to music, which now sounds absolutely insane. Cause
Used
like,
to do what?
Like used to read and listen to music at the same time, which just sounds chaotic now thinking about it. Because like, how did I do that? Like, I can't multitask anyway, and that makes music seem a bit sort of like disposable in a way, like, or it's just there, like it's just happening over there and it's just on.
Yeah, I find it really immersive. I find it hard to concentrate on anything else, and it can be difficult sometimes. Like if I find it difficult if I'm like with a new friend or something, or in a new place. I get very distracted anyway. I find it hard to concentrate. But it's impossible if there's kind of a bit of music that I haven't heard, and all I want to do is listen to that, and I kind of like can't. I've stopped pretend. I used to pretend I was still listening, and then I kind of have this thing where I kind of come back into a conversation like, oh shit, let's try and get some clues. What are they saying? All right, I think it's about this.
Just
I think
have to
it's
go,
about this. All right, let's go for it. Just agree. Yep, okay, we're back in the room. And like, you know, I've been zoned out for like a minute and a half. And I've been gone, but I've also been there. But I think now I just would be like, oh, I actually just need to listen to this. I can't talk at the same time. It's too distracting. And also like you might not hear that bit of music again.
Yeah,
I find
exactly.
it. I don't know. Like I find it funny when they have really good music on like TV shows. I end up just like shazamming TV shows.
Yeah.
'Cause I'm like,
there's all the time.
There's one called The Serpent, like and it's really not very.
That was a great show.
It's on BBC and it's about Did you see it? Yeah, it's like
it's terrifying, but it's really really well filmed But like, all the music was really good in it as well.
Yeah, I was really distracted by it because I was like, actually, I just kind of want to. There was one there that was like, what is this? And I was really surprised it was the Rolling Stones. I think it's like one of the earlier episodes, but I was like, this is a really good Rolling Stones track that I had not heard of. It doesn't sound like Mick Jagger singing, but it is them, which is quite good. But yeah, that whole thing, like, is kind of, I ended up just shazamming the whole thing. There was like another thing recently as well. I guess it probably had loads of 70s and 60s music in it. And I just kind of needed to hear what all of it was. Oh, Baby Driver's quite a good one as well. That's got a lot of good music in it.
What are the origins of Jeff? And who is Jeff?
So, let's start with who is Jeff. Jeff is a drag alter ego that most times comes out on stage, and that's who I perform as. And we have largely become one and the same thing aside from a moustache. I mean, I now have a kind of permanent mullet, and we kind of are the same thing and human. But it started out as a mechanism by which I could perform more comfortably. So I always felt quite self-conscious on stage, and when I was in the Fucks and when I was in landscapes. I was presented quite in like you. I was read very much as being female. I used to have like waist length, just like massively long hair, and because it was a kind of way of hiding to some extent. So I'm non-binary. I'm also autistic, so I'm kind of an expert at masking and hiding. I was only like diagnosed very, very recently, but I'm very good at like pretending to be different things for a brief amount of time. If you get to know me, you'll just be like, yeah, no, that's not going to work. It's definitely a costume. But I think what happened was I'd started to perform solo with my Jemma Freeman and the Cosmic Something stuff, and I was just starting to get the same kind of comments, predominantly from older men, let's say, like would come up and, like, oh, like you're good at guitar for a girl kind of vibe, that kind of thing. Or, just lots of references to like my physicality. And I was just kind of coming to terms with what my gender might be. Like it took me a long time to kind of figure all of that kind of stuff out. Like when I was growing up, we didn't really have any of that kind of language. It's either like you're gay and you're a lesbian and that means you're into house music. And I was like, oh no, maybe I'm not one then, because I hate house music. So how am I? There's nowhere for me to go. Like where do all the, Hannah Gadsby's like an amazing autistic queer comedian, and she's like, where do all the quiet gays go? And it's like, that's exactly what I was thinking. It's like, I don't want to go to like a big noisy parade and wave a flag necessarily. Like that's not my idea of fun, whereas you guys definitely are genuinely having fun doing that. That's just really not me. I want like a space where we all just sit and look at our shoes and talk about guitar pedals, and that just didn't really seem to be around. So I kind of was just starting to perform again and kind of get a bit confident and feel like okay about performing and things like that, because I'd had a lot of anxiety about that. And it was like a really, really hot day, and it was at Deptford Vinyl, or what is now Sister Midnight, and that basement can just get so hot, it's ridiculous. It's like walking into a sauna. It's tiled, it's all tiled, and then the minute somebody spills one bit of drink, the whole thing basically turns into a sauna. And I think I just kind of really, I usually kind of I used to cover up my body quite a lot, and I just was like, oh God, I'm gonna die if I try and perform in whatever. I'd like chosen something inappropriate, and I was like, I'm gonna have to perform in like, remove a layer or whatever. But I was really, really anxious about the idea of like people viewing what might be seen as a really feminine body. So I decided to just throw on some really, really quick drag, because I was like, I really want to subvert this. I really want to just make everybody a bit confused about it, like just mess up the kind of whole thing. Like, no, I don't want you to find me fanciable as a straight woman, as what you're kind of might want to try and see me with. So it was initially sort of like a bit of war paint, really, like protection, like armor, a mask. But I actually found that by putting that on, I felt, even though if it was, even if it's veiled and thin and like, really, you probably perhaps everyone can still see me. For me, that kind of did something. It transformed something. It was a transformative moment for me in terms of performance, in that I suddenly felt really empowered. And like, when I used to play guitar, I always kind of felt, perhaps through my own kind of internalized misogyny, or just because of the kind of guitar players that I wanted to emulate or were admired, were mostly male. When I played guitar, I definitely felt non-female, which was like not necessarily feeling male. I'm not saying that feeling male is like a more positive thing, but it felt more like a position where I could excel, rather than being reminded of like something. I guess I don't relate to being female at all, and I was told that that's what I was my whole life. And so I kind of tried to perform that, and then I wasn't very good at it. Like, and just like I wasn't very good at pretending to be a woman. I was quite a crap woman, but I'm like, I'm quite a good non-binary person. Just like I wasn't a very good neurotypical person. I'm actually fine at being autistic. Really good at that, in fact, it turns out.
Yeah.
Because that's what I am. So I think that when I decided to put the drag on, suddenly it was a small act of rebellion that kind of like put my brain into the right space, whereby I could actually access all the kind of emotions and feelings, and I didn't feel embarrassed or afraid to portray those on stage, because I felt like, I'm being like Freddie Mercury, I'm being like this camp, weird, sort of machismo kind of infused sort of character, rather than, you know, just like a kind of woman that wasn't quite doing it right. You know, I had like quite horrible comments sometimes from people, like because of my personality on stage. Like when I played with Land Shapes, I remember we went and played Germany one time, and I had the same personality. I still moved about the same. I kind of, you know, if you come and watch me, like I kind of use the stage. It's there to be used. I'm a physical performer. It's visceral. I kind of, you know, I'm not going to be polite and just stand and sing. I'm going to use it. And, you know, like I sort of said, like Mark Bolan, Freddie Mercury, all those kind of things. I'm channeling that kind of vibe, or like Courtney Love, like, you know, being a bit edgy and on the edge of the stage. And I was kind of like that in a probably not the right band, not the right setting. And I remember this guy came up after and he's like, "You are what we call in Germany a stage hog." And I was like, "Oh, right. No, stage pig." And I was like, "Thanks." Cheers. Yeah. And it's like, basically, I kind of had like offended his sense of like, you know, you're meant to be a girl on stage and you're meant to be like, you know, standing like the other two and being pretty and delicate. And he was like, "Well, I'm not that. So, all right, I'm a pig. Cool." You know, I've had like lots of kind of advice from people, but I find that as Jeff, I get a lot less advice because, you know, he's kind of aggressive on stage to some extent. You know, I will challenge the audience to somewhat. I will kind of, if I see people sort of being disrespectful, I kind of can't help but, you know, I might sort of like dive out into, I might not now because of COVID, but like, you know, I would dive out into the stage with my guitar and maybe like run towards them. There was like a spate of, actually, I was just thinking about it, a spate of really, really sort of predatory photographers that started going around to like sort of, you know, there's a lot of like women gigs and girls to the front and kind of, you know, there's a few like different kind of organisers doing that kind of thing. And there's this whole like tranche of photographers that would only come to free shows. They'd never pay. They'd never buy any merch. And then they just occupy the whole of the front of the stage and like kind of block the area for everyone else. And I had a really fun time. I just decided I had enough one gig because it was just like, it's really off-putting. Just like, also they never took nice pictures. They were always just like of my like double chin. It's just like, I am not a model. I'm not a supermodel. You cannot take that angle on me. Like, there's a reason I got a beard as well, you know, vanity beard, Maria Callas kind of approach. But like, you know, like, it's just, so they'd always take these really unflattering pictures, which you'd never get. And then, you know, just awful. So I sort of would jump off the stage and I would just kind of like run at them with my guitar, basically. Because it's just like, you're going to run at me with your camera and like, as if I can't do anything about it. And I can, actually. Like most of the women that you're taking pictures of, or like, they can't, because they're kind of trapped there because that's their performance. And they just got to stand there and deal with you kind of like offensively, like directing your lens at them. But I am not those people. And I will challenge this. So, so yeah, kind of like, I think in real life, I am quite a timid person and quite shy and rarely go out or do anything. And I think people are always quite surprised when I come off stage when I talk to them, because they're like, "Oh, like you're not a complete cock." And it's like, no, that's just all on stage. I think that kind of Jeff probably embodies some sort of more confident, assertive elements of myself that I should probably try and imbue within my sort of normal everyday life. I even had a therapist once suggest that I should be more Jeff. Well, aside from the aesthetics, I'm not quite sure how much of that I've taken on board, but yeah, it's kind of like some element of my personality that I kind of is there, but it's not generally demonstrated in a day-to-day life. I feel very comfortable on stage. It's like probably my most comfortable place, to be honest with you. I can kind of like sink into that and be in control of all of that, and I feel quite confident up there. It's like the minute I have to come off, it's all a bit like, how does any of this work? This is all a bit complicated. Yeah.
It's interesting you say that, because I feel like that sort of, even those moments straight after a gig can be quite intense in themselves. Like, it must be almost like 10 times that. Like for you, like definitely.
It's yeah. I feel like after a gig, I probably can cope a bit better because you're just full of like endorphins and stuff.
Yeah. So you mentioned you have pretty much finished your second album, if not finished it. how did you approach like the writing to that? Was that made during lockdowns, or was it made at home, or was it sort of pre-lockdowns? I don't know.
So it's like kind of there's 3 different approaches for this one. There are some that I had written. So like, I mean, whenever you put out an album, there's always like a massive gap between when you've written something, when it's got recorded, and then because we were lucky enough to release it on vinyl, there was also then having to sort of wait for a slot for that, because the vinyl factories have all got like a massive lead time. So there were some songs that were already kind of like half made, and we probably would have been just about ready to perform them probably in whenever lockdown happened, 2020. So there was a few there, and then we had lockdown, so then I kind of wrote a bunch of things and recorded some stuff myself. So there was some that some that are kind of almost in their original format from the home recordings to some extent. We've kind of replaced the vocal on some, and then added some drums. Actually, added some live drums, but to the greater extent, they're sort of in the original format because, I mean, I make a lot of home demos and they have got kind of a slight idiosyncratic kind of quality to them, which is quite nice and it's hard to recreate. So, you know, I don't know if you like when you record stuff and you kind of, you know, try and recreate. Sometimes it's just not possible. Like you'll be able to do a live version of it, but there's sometimes just some nice little interactions that occur that are, you know, mistakes in essence.
Yeah.
Which are hard to recreate, or sounds that, you know, even if they're kind of lo-fi and stuff, they're really nice. So there was those ones, and then the other thing was that myself and Jason, the drummer, I'd got some like bits and pieces. I'd been working out on guitar, some like riffs and stuff, like and I've sort of been working on playing about with time a little bit. He's a very, very technical, amazing drummer, and he's like, you know, he's one of those assholes that always just like, no, you're not gonna have 4/4. I'm gonna just give you some random pulse, and then I'm gonna just go round the kit, and you're just like, fuck. Luckily, I only think in 4s. But I just kind of knew that he was up for a bit of a challenge in terms of the riffs and things we were doing. So we had a couple of bits and pieces that we literally just had the tape, a hypothetical tape rolling. So Mark, who usually plays bass, is producing this one, and he just kind of hit record, and so we did some big long chunks of basically just jamming in a studio, but recorded really nicely. So properly mic'd up drum set and, you know, stereo amps, and just me and Jason just kind of going for it. And then what we managed to do is like chop about 4 songs, I think it is, out of like these various jams. One of which was just completely spontaneous because I just I made a good noise and I was like, this is a really good noise. And so then we just kind of recorded 6 minutes of it, and then we chopped it down, and now we've got like a 3-minute kind of pop song. And then there's one that's like a big epic kind of proggy one, and then another one which is still kind of a bit weird, and then another one as well. So lots of them were just sort of done quite live, and we've sort of chopped them about a bit and made stuff afterwards. And then, so yeah, there's kind of the 3 main approaches. And then and then the other thing was the other way that we've been working is I have used a click. I've been kind to my poor drummer on some, and then on some I haven't. I've just been literally like a bit drunk or something, and just recorded something and then sent them to him, and then he has religiously studied them and learned all of my incorrect time changes, and we've then had to learn them as a band because he has learnt all of my drunk incorrect changes, which I have no idea what they are. So we've got a song called Huge, and we've literally had to just write a chart out, and it's just this nonsensical chart. And he learnt how to play it, and then he recorded the drums to it. This kind of completely out of time track, but it sounds great. So
that sounds amazing.
So that was another way. So I was kind of like making demos and sending them to him, some of which were in time and some were not. I have learnt to my not my detriment, because the song sounds great, but it was really hard work. We spent about
in time,
an hour
out of time, I guess,
going round and round it. And now it's one of those weird things where it's just like, oh yeah, of course it makes sense, but it doesn't make any sense to anyone else. So yeah.
So would you say your approach has changed from your first LP? Like, has it changed drastically to the second one then?
Definitely, because like I have like a lot of trust issues in terms of working with other people based on like a few kind of fairly major disasters quite early on in my sort of musical career. So this has been a much more collaborative kind of thing. Like literally just, sending things backwards and forwards. I think I kind of also sometimes haven't really understood how it is that other people work with each other. When you hear like artists are collaborating, I've not really understood what on earth that meant, and I've assumed it's just like everything else in life, that it's just some sort of social skill I am missing. But actually, it turns out that collaboration can be whatever the hell you want it to be. So if it is me sending a drunk out of time track to Jason to then put drums on, then that is actually collaboration and making work.
Yeah.
But it hadn't really occurred to me that that could be a thing. Like I've got a real thing of like what rules are and things like that. I was sort of discussing like we're working with Samuel Nicholson at the minute. He's playing some bass for us whilst Mark's doing more production side, and we both had the same experience whereby Total Guitar magazine like really corrupted us at some point, and because because there was like it had a real vendetta against like bands doing solos. We've worked out why.
Right.
It's because they were scarred from hair metal. But
Yeah,
like that's what
sure.
the kind of yeah. But like we kind of were both like yeah. For some reason, I really felt like I wasn't allowed to do solos, and there was some other weird rule.
Seemed out for quite a long time.
Right?
Even in like the kind of the indie thing of like the late 2000s, early 2010s. It was like, yeah, we still solos ain't the one.
Right.
Why?
Right?
Yeah.
So you must have read the same issues of
Indulgent.
Guitar,
This
Total
is it.
Guitar. And there was
Yeah.
another thing that they hated as well. Oh yeah, I was talking about how I was scared of reverb for ages. Like I refused to have any reverb because I had read in Total Guitar that it was cheating. And I also didn't own any. This will come as a complete surprise because I own so many fucking effects pedals now. But I didn't own an effects pedal. Well, I had like one when I was 15, but I didn't ever use it live because I'd also read in Total Guitar magazine that it was cheating to use effects. Like everyone basically needed to be Eric Clapton, and it took me ages to get over it, ages and ages and ages, because I just thought that was a rule. Yeah, what was I trying to say? Oh yeah, so I kind of I think I thought collaboration. I didn't realize you can basically make up your own rules, and if you do it in long enough, then people just assume you have a technique, and then they're like, so your technique is this, and you're like, what? Really? I have a technique? It's like, oh, you just keep doing something for long enough, and then it becomes a thing. So,
Yeah.
so yeah, that's kind of how I've been working with that, and recently we've just been doing a lot of rehearsing. We did like loads of rehearsing because we were panicking about the first gig, so we probably over rehearsed, but in doing so have like really got in, like we really kind of get on with each other musically, so we've been making a lot of tunes up just as we've been going along, and like being really playful and silly, and all pushing each other quite a bit, like all kind of little like that kind of edge of competitiveness, but also you kind of want to make it work, so it's really 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 fun. So like Jason's a really playful drummer, and I'm really competitive, and Sam's just really technically brilliant, so it's like it's quite a good combination of things. It's quite fun.
Yeah. It's a good place to be, I imagine.
You what, sorry?
It's a really good place to be, I imagine, sort of being
Yeah.
in that room where everything's clicking really well.
Yeah, it's exciting and fun, and like it's like always annoying when we have to stop. It's just like, why isn't this our job?
I'll move us on to the third and final section, which I'd like to call, for some reason, every episode I end up going, I'd like to call it this, but it's not. I never call it that ever. But it's what inspired them. So, what artist? I've sort of already asked that actually, but what artist / band did you listen to and sort of made you want to create music yourself?
David Bowie, I think, was one of the first ones because it's just like the weirdest thing I'd ever seen, and then because I was just obsessed, it just kind of because his lyrics you can hear quite audibly, but they're all quite nonsensy. But I liked that because they made more sense to me in a way than anything that had a more logical narrative. Because I was just like, could mean whatever you wanted it to mean, and it never ever kind of created too strong a picture in the same way that I found kind of some others other lyrics and things ended up being really preoccupying me, so I couldn't listen to the music, like the cross-eyed bear kind of thing. I ended up not being able to hear anything else. It was just like a real burdensome thing. 'Cause it's like, oh no, it's going to come up, it's coming up. Whereas with like the David Bowie lyrics, it's kind of like they could just kind of wash over me in a way, but also, you know, but with feeling, and so that was quite really important. And then Mark Bolan, definitely. And Janis Joplin. Like, I think Janis Joplin, when I first heard how she sang, I was just like, great. You don't have to sound pretty. Like, you don't, you know, it was really important to me. I felt there was like such a pressure all the time to sort of sing correctly. And although I do try and sing in tune, I think there's like a lot of pressure on like women and non-binary people to sort of sound a certain way, and otherwise it's kind of a bit threatening and offensive, and it's just like it was a real relief to me to hear how raw you could get with something, you know, and just like how rock and roll it was. Like, it was just really kind of like, I mean, it's a kind of cheesy thing to say, but just really how it wasn't trying to be delicate in any way, shape or form. Like, those are robust feelings and robust songs, and like, you know, proper players and stuff like that. So those kind of artists were really a massive influence. And then like I learned to play guitar by listening to a T-Rex compilation tape, which I did originally buy for my mum for Mother's Day, but I ended up just sort of having
it yourself
in the way that I think probably lots of people have done. I realised afterwards, I thought I was a really bad person for doing that, but I think that happens quite often.
I do that every Christmas with books for my mother.
Yeah.
I'm just like, when I'm buying books, like she's one of these people that are voracious readers, and I always think, oh, I like the look of that. I'll get that in a couple of months once she's done with it. And I'm just reading stuff now that she's like, here you are. And I'm like, it worked.
Smooth.
So I'm glad I'm not the only person who's on that.
No, I think it's quite normal. I thought I was like a horrible person, but I think actually it's quite normal, particularly when you're a teenager as well. Like, obviously you're just like, oh yeah, this is for you, this is for me, this is for me. So I listened to that. I remember I think I was like off sick or something once, probably, from school, and I discovered this drawer of like 7 inches that I didn't know had existed in our house. It was a really odd drawer, like, and there was a lot of ska, like early ska records and stuff, and then there was also Ride a White Swan. So I remember I wasn't really meant to touch the record player. I don't know why. I think I was like kind of this object that was just like, you know, even though I was like a teenager and probably would have been fine using it, my dad would just be like, no, but because he was out. I remember it just being a really thrilling experience, you know, like, oh, I'm going to get caught using the record player. And like, thinking about it now, it's just like, oh my God, why was I so... But it was a really exhilarating experience. And like, the 2 records that I put on was like, who is it? So Al Capone, Guns Don't Argue. I was like this kind of ska one. And then there was T-Rex, Ride a White Swan, and that is another one of those songs that makes me cry. The solo, it's amazing. It's such a simple song. There was like nothing to it. It's just the guitar. It's like hardly anything to it. There's like one violin or something. I think it's Tony Visconti's, like one of his earlier productions, and it's just so pure and perfect. It's like I could listen to that record over and over and over again. I always think, you know, like when they talk about like Desert Island Discs, I wouldn't have to bring any of the discs because I actually can remember all of the parts to some songs. Like my favourite songs, I can like play them. I can play them and I can choose which bits of them I can play. And I can play that one in my head forever. Like I would miss not hearing it properly, but I would definitely be able to play that forever in my head. And like I remember hearing that and thinking, I could play that. I think I could play that because there's like I remember also Total Guitar corrupting like my image of Mark Bolan. They were sort of saying like he only knew 7 chords or something, but it was like he wrote like 400 songs that were recorded. But I remember just thinking and listening to that one and thinking, I think I could do this. I think I could do this. I can't play this actual one, and also listening to his guitar solo because it's like so strange. It's really emotive, but it's like very wonkily played and. I love it. I absolutely love it, and you could never recreate it. That's the best thing about it. Is it's like this completely unique sort of like, as if you've heard like a sort of some some sound in the distance that you'll never hear, you'll never be able to recreate again. It's like that kind of thing. It's really evocative to me, and I really enjoyed that. That was one of the earliest things I think I remember listening to and feeling really, really connected to. And then also Carole King. I was like really just liked all my parents' record collection. I was really uncool at school. Like one day everyone brought in their Walkmans. That's how old I am. Everyone had a Walkman. And they brought in their Walkmans, and everyone was listening to like LL Cool J, and I can't even remember. Like really, like we were about 12 or something like that. And I was like, "Oh, you're gonna love this. This is so cool. Like literally, just give it a chance. Just listen." And I was like trying to get everyone to listen to T-Rex, and I was just like, "What are you?" It was like really confusing to me. It was like, "This is so good though. Like this is so like you just all this stuff you're listening to is on the radio all the time. Like." You don't need to listen to it on tape. It's always there. It's going to be there forever. Listen to this, though. Yeah. And I was like, maybe it was probably like the moment at which I lost all of my friends. Probably like that was probably the moment where it was just that sealed the deal there. Yeah. But yeah.
If you could choose, I guess that sort of leads nicely onto this one. If you could choose 3 artists to collaborate with, I know we've discussed the definition of collaboration already, but on your terms, who would you choose
Dead or alive
for those 3 artists? Dead or alive. Sky's the limit. So
I'd want to work with Brian Eno, I think, because I think Brian Eno probably doesn't like doing too much chatting. Although I am being quite chatty right now, because it's about my favourite topic, which is me, of course. I think Brian Eno, just because he's done so many different things and worked with so many different people, and I really, really just feel like probably like a lot of people, but I feel like I connect on some sort of level to the kind of sounds he's trying to create. I really feel like, although I do not understand them, I feel like we might get on. I've kind of spent quite a lot of my life trying to recreate Brian Eno sounds without realising. So definitely Brian Eno. And then who else? I wouldn't want to work with like Mark Bolan or David Bowie, I don't think, because I would want to be watching them. So who else would I want to work with? This is quite a difficult question. I'm quite.
I realise this.
I'm quite
every
an
time
introvert.
we interview people.
Really, I like working with people that stretch me a bit. So I'm working for example, I'm working at the minute with Fran Lobo, and she makes. I would say she sounds like some kind of combination between Tricky and Bjork, but via some 90s R&B and with a little bit of Freddie Mercury. And she's like kind of an electronic kind of artist, and it like kind of pushes me a bit. So I would want to work, I'm sort of like thinking of my favourite artists, but I would want to work with someone probably like a bit weird. Like maybe I'd want to work with Tricky, for example. Although that might be like probably hellish in its own ways. I'd imagine that would be a lot of weed smoking, and I feel like I've done that. I did that bit. I did that bit of my life, and
completed.
I feel like I might just have done too much damage. The amount of horrifying flashbacks I would have during that process might be a bit much, but maybe it would be fine. So maybe Tricky, and then I definitely just would want to be like somehow like I'd want to work with Jimi Hendrix, like just because like at certain points he had so many people in his band. I'm sure I could just sneak in. It would be okay.
Oh yeah, just turn up.
I could just be the like one of the random percussion players, or like Talking Heads maybe. Don't know. I have to choose 3, don't I? Wait, not Tricky because we've gone through that. I can't relive that amount of weed smoking ever again.
You could probably have Talking Heads in the back, like Brian Eno / Talking Heads, because they work together.
Yeah, you get it all in together, man.
Yeah, you sneak
with
it in.
Jimi Hendrix.
As long as you got a Brian Eno era, you've got like Talking Heads in that. Sorted.
Maybe you'd want to. Oh no, actually, maybe. Wait, no. Okay, right. So Brian Eno, definitely. Jimi Hendrix again. I would just be watching him, wouldn't I? I would just be watching him too much. Maybe for a laugh, it'd be quite good to be in James Brown's band though, because Jimi Hendrix was in James Brown's band
and
got kicked out.
Yeah.
And because I just feel like
really
the amount,
the
like
system,
how regimented and how like ridiculous he'd be, because they got fined, didn't they, if they got things wrong and stuff like that, and he would just randomly shout stop and things like that. So yeah, so Brian Eno, James Brown, and like Madonna, but I'd like to be in her dance troupe.
Nice.
I like that. Yeah. I like the alternative approach to choosing artists to collaborate with. Is I'll have to take that on board. I guess we move slowly onto the final question.
Okay.
Which is the one that always trips everyone up, and I always feel terrible about it as soon as I've asked it. So I'm apologising before I've asked it now.
Am I gonna hate you?
But
okay.
what is your go-to karaoke song?
Oh. Oh no.
Oh. It
Yeah.
started so positively, that reaction.
I'm really bad at choosing things. Like, I'm really, like, chronically bad at making decisions. So I think I usually end up getting other people to choose what my karaoke song is. And I'm trying to remember what the heck it was that I sang. I sang something in Peckham. Oh, God. Like, I can't remember what it was. It's usually something really cheesy. Like, I've got, like, Rainbow stuck in my head, but I don't think it was Rainbow that I sang. I think I sang a Queen song. I think I probably sang a Queen song. And I can't remember which one
I think
it was.
I'd probably go for Bohemian Rhapsody if I was going to do a Queen song. just because it would be amazing to do as a karaoke.
Might have been something as ridiculous as that. I think it might have been Don't Stop Me Now. I think it might have been that.
It's a definite
it
crowd
was that.
pleaser.
Or it was something else. Or it might have been Gloria. That's not obviously not a Queen song. But I haven't done that much karaoke. I'm not very good at socializing, so I don't get invited to many things like this, really. So
Well, neither do I, but
I think I
It's
made
nice
my
to think.
housemate go and have karaoke because it was like, if I had ever had a birthday party and had people to invite to it, I would go and do karaoke in Peckham. So I think I ended up kind of persuading her that was a really good thing to do. I'm not sure she had the greatest time, but it was really fun.
Well, Jemma, it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you, and learning so much. Just generally finding out so much about you and your process, and you're just a virtuoso in so many senses, and it's been so nice to chat to you. And we're really looking forward to hearing the second album because I absolutely love the first one.
Yeah, cool.
So.
Well, hopefully there'll be something to hear not too soon. The aim is to get, again, because of vinyl times, hopefully we get it all kind of packaged up by the end of August so that it can come out ideally March 2022, which sounds like a ridiculous time away, but...
That's how it be sometimes.
Yeah. That's what happens when you get like Metallica re-releasing their entire back catalogue on yellow vinyl. Just stops everyone else being able to put anything out.
Aww.
So
Gotta pay the rent somehow.
but you what?
They gotta pay the rent somehow.
Oh, I know. It must be hard. But there might be an EP before that.
Nice.
Ooh.
You heard it here
Sneaky.
first, guys.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I'll let you know about that as soon as that's ready. But it'll be nice to see you the weekend. And
Yeah, for sure. I can't wait. This will be my
Wicked.
first. This will be my first gig since.
Oh,
things,
wow.
Going down. So
No pressure.
No pressure, of course.
No, it's all right. It's my. I met my partner at the windmill. By met, I mean I invited them on a date there, and then I had also a gig, which is a really stupid idea for a date. Don't do that.
You're not the first person that I've heard that.
It's a bad plan.
It sounds like a weird plan. I can't.
I don't know why I thought it was a good idea. I think probably because I just panicked, and I'm not good at making decisions, and what do people do? Where do people go? Like, I'm a person who doesn't do things or go anywhere. I just sit and watch Netflix and play guitar in weird tunings. I'm just like, oh God, how do you meet people? So anyway, I invited them to a gig, then realised it was a bad plan. So literally just went, hi, and then was like, found them so like attractive and terrifying. I just didn't talk to them for the rest of the night. So, but they are still with me after 2 years. But it's actually technically like our anniversary on Sunday. So there's like all kinds of reasons why it's like no pressure.
Oh wow, I'm even more excited now.
Oh my God.
Oh, that's great.
I have joked that I'll like ask them to marry me just so they can say no and embarrass me on stage. I'm not going to do that. They were like, yeah, do that. I was like, no, because everyone will think it's real and be really sad because you're definitely going to say no.
They'll buy merch though. They'll buy merch. This is a great business.
Oh yeah,
plan.
they'll feel sorry for me and buy merch. It's a good idea. Sympathy merch. Maybe. Thank you very much for talking to me. I'm sorry I kind of yammer on. Also, I never know how to end sentences, so I'm a nightmare to edit. I'm telling you in advance.
I feel the same way, but this is exactly what we wanted. You've been an absolutely stellar guest. I really had such a good time.
Oh, wicked.
Yeah, it's been a delight. Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
I guess thanks everyone for listening to episode 3 of UO and Friends. Tune in for next time where I don't know who we'll be interviewing, but that's all part of the fun. So yeah, see you later.